Okay, let's see. This is, yeah. Today is the 15th. Yes, today is June 15th, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and we're visiting with Lois Barron, formerly of LaBelle, Florida. And Lois is going to share her memories of the early years in LaBelle and tell us about her life now. And she's going to talk about Barney, her deceased husband, late husband, and everything she can think about with LaBelle. For instance, when did you move to LaBelle?
We moved to LaBelle in 1937.
37. What was it like?
It was the last frontier. There was not but 500 people living there, and all of them were kin.
All of them were what?
All of them were kinfolks.
Oh, 500 kinfolk?
Mm-hmm. Mixtures of them. You didn't dare say anything about anybody.
They all knew each other, huh?
Mm-hmm. So all were kin. Some way.
They were all kin. Well, what did you think about the place? You said you grew up, I believe you told me you grew up in Tampa.
Well, it was quite a change, and I had to get used to it, but I suppose I did because I was there 50 years.
50 years in LaBelle. You moved there in 37. So if you're there 50 years, you left in 87.
88.
88?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So what was the industry? What was going on in LaBelle when you moved there? How did people make a living?
Well, that's before we had, well, there were ranches around, and then the courthouse was a source of employment. Mm-hmm. And there was always something on the river that was bringing people in to do different works around the area that was done by the government at that time.
Like what? Do you remember any of those things?
Well, I know lots of times they would come in and be in LaBelle for some time. I don't recall the type of work it was, though. But I think really the ranches was a lot of because they would come in and buy their goods and things.
Oh, so the ranchers come into LaBelle and buy supplies,
That's
and
right.
they're raising cattle, right?
Oh, yes.
What did they do with cattle? Obviously, they sold them. Where would they sell them?
Well, at that time, I was right. The Depression really wasn't over in 37. Lots of them were taken to the different auction houses, like around Kissimmee and Arcadia and places like that.
Oh,
So we would have buyers come in years later. They would come in, and a lot of our cattle were shipped west. But it was just...
It was cattle town.
It was
A lot of
cattle
people
town.
told me there were the cowboys that come into town and hit the saloons or whatever. And the Indians would still come in.
Oh, yes.
You met Seminole Indians?
My son had a girlfriend he met every Saturday afternoon at the trading post. You've heard about the trading post.
I heard about it, but I don't remember a whole lot about it.
Well, it was, I don't know what's there now, but it was, if you went in there and Merle Davis didn't have it, he said, you come back, don't tell him about it, you come back, and next time you come, I'll have it. It was that type of deal.
Really? It was General Merchant. And Merle Davis, you knew him, huh?
Yes.
And he ran
The
it.
thing is this, another income, they had, just as we moved in there, they were finishing up cutting a lot of the timber that was on our property later. And the sawmill was downtown, kind of where the city hall is, right back in that area. And that kept a lot of people employed. And when they finished and moved out, lots of the Negroes stayed there, stayed at LaBelle down in the quarters. But that was another income I hadn't thought of in a long, long time.
And then would they ship the lumber down the river before?
I guess that's what they did. I don't know. And of course, there was now a railroad 8 miles from our house. See, we were right inside the city limits, and on across that ditch is where the county begins. And 8 miles down the road, there was a railroad that had a train that came in there. I think it still does. But Barney was planning. He couldn't get that dirt out of his shoes to save his life.
Yeah.
He planted watermelon. Even after we sold the land, he leased land down in Immokalee to still plant melons.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Now, you said you moved from Tampa, and you and Barney, I assume, moved together.
Mm-hmm.
Why did y'all leave Tampa and move to LaBelle?
We came to make a home for my father. He had leased not the town property of Henry Ford, but he had leased the for grazing, his land, and it included Fort Thompson. That's why we were staying at that Fort Thompson house, and the ice house. The ruins of the ice house is still there. And I understand they have put out there something that should have been done a long, long time. Because Fort Thompson was quite a prominent place in our history.
So this was your father,
Mm-hmm.
leased land from the Henry Ford?
The Henry Ford. And I don't know, Bonnie, do you know Bonnie Henshaw?
Yeah.
The girl that does my doings. She sent me a paper, and it had in there that I thought I knew everything about Fort Thompson. This was a wonderful article. It was a paper that is new in LaBelle, I understand. It was telling how Mr. Goodnow, Mr. Goodnow is the one that built that house for his mother. And the house was...
Now, which house is that?
The old Goodnow house that we were living in. It was built up on a level, a high level, and it was 2 stories and built in 1906. And high windows, high ceiling. We moved in there, and I didn't see how anybody could have lived in the house. Of course, that was 37, and that was 6 when it was built, but there wasn't a closet in it. No cabinets in the kitchen. And Barney and I worked and painted and got it where it was half decent, and the thing burned down.
While y'all were living there?
Mm-hmm.
So did you lose everything that was in it?
Not everything. We lost everything in the dining room, and luckily I hadn't brought any of our wedding presents down. I still have my mother's in Tampa.
Oh.
But I had been washing, we had all had the flu, and I had been washing diapers for my baby, Barney Joe, and I had them in a little tin bucket. I picked up the telephone to call and somebody come out and help. It was one of those whining kind of telephones, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and it went to the office, you know. You couldn't call like we do today. I couldn't think of what to do, so I just dropped that bucket of clothes and walked out and left them.
Oh, no.
I couldn't think of the number to call, even call the exchange.
Because the house was on fire?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Did you set the house on fire?
No, I didn't.
So
Sometimes I wish I had.
How did the house catch on fire?
You know how they used to build those chimneys that right in the center of the house, and the brick would show on the second floor.
Yeah.
Really for heat, I guess, as much as anything. That's where it started. But
Were you scared? Did it scare you?
oh yes, but you know, it was just I thought of it immediately though. If it had happened at night, it would have been a calamity. Because I had a brother upstairs, my father was upstairs. He always had a driver. He never did learn to drive. And at that time, 2 of the cowboys were staying there. But see, they were all gone. And people came out to the city fire department we had that was real good. They came out and we saved the bedroom furniture and the living room furniture. And in the living room, you stepped down, out, a door. There was not any stairs there. I had taken my rings off
Mm-hmm.
and put them in a little cigarette. It was on chest of drawers. They took that chest of drawers outside, went down with no stair they, and got it away from the house, and it was absolutely, those rings were still right there.
Now, was that fire department from LaBelle or Fort Myers?
From LaBelle.
It was from LaBelle?
I don't know where it is now, where the fire department is. It used to be right downtown near the old Florinellas. I'm gonna have some water. Do you want some water?
I'd love some. Opening in, and I told you I got a bite to eat, and they're real friendly there.
Yeah, it's just, and they're just trusting people. You go into it and get something, and I can't go into the detail about it. Just go into the restroom, and you talk with people like you know. People talk to you like they've known you always, and you wouldn't dare do that at home. We hadn't had for years.
Okay, I want to ask you a couple questions now. I want to explore something. You said your father was friends with rented leased land from Henry Ford. Were they friends?
No, he missed him. He came through town, LaBelle, one time, and stopped at the hotel downtown. But he didn't know, but he didn't, never had the honor of meeting him. But Mr. Ford had a representative that lived in Fort Myers, and he and my father became real good friends.
Well, Mr. Ford and Mr. Edison,
they were very good friends.
and they knew Mr. Terrell.
Oh, yes.
Terrell Gardens.
Oh, yes. And
You used to go to Terrell Gardens and play canasta.
Huh?
You used to play canasta there.
I sure did. I was a real good friend of hers. And I liked
Who were you a friend of?
Mrs. Terrell.
Mrs.
We've all played bridge out in that garden many a time.
Oh, it was bridge. It wasn't canasta. It was bridge. Huh?
And Dr. Terrell was somebody who had to accept him as he was, and if you would, you'd like him. Of course, he didn't like everybody. Now, he made no bones about who he liked and who he didn't. But he looked like Charlie Chapman.
Really?
And he shuffled like Charlie Chapman. But he had a brilliant mind and had a wonderful career. But I heard what Elizabeth Bungard had to say.
You remember when ma'am?
I remember what Elizabeth Bungard had to say about him. Terry told me.
Really? Oh, my. So I just wanted to explore that a little bit.
Oh, let me tell you about Mr. Kingston.
Kingston?
He invented Mr. Ford's representative in Fort Myers. He had invented the Kingston carburetor for either the Model T or the Model A Fords. And when we decided we wanted to buy that land, he told my father to make a bid, just to make it big. And so when they took it to him, he said, and looked at it, he said, "Joe, that's not enough." So he upped it enough, and we got the property.
So you got what used to be Henry Ford's property.
Yeah, his Ford, he had a big holdings in LaBelle and in Glades County also. From, like I just said, the city ditch beyond our house, you go 8 miles to Goodnoe, where the railroad track is, and he owned every other section.
Now that's a 640-acre section.
Yeah, but Consolidated Land owned the other sections. It had to have been a tax, a good thing on taxes, or that doesn't make sense to buy every other section of land if you want to ever control anything. But I'm sure there was a reason. The Fords, I don't know that Ford came over to hunt, but that hotel that was at Goodnoe at Fort Thompson where we lived, I understand that Edison Firestone. What's the other one that lived next door to Ford? Edison. They all came over hunting, and hunting was so great in that time. It was wasted so, the way they would go out and kill things they couldn't use. But that was a trend of time, I guess. Hmm. But in this article that I read just recently about Mr. Goodnow, and see, Mr. Goodnow owned the land, and he sold his land to Ford, and then Ford to us. One of the Hendrys owned it before that. I read that he said that he would go into Kansas, where he came from, and offer land to people to come to Florida and plant and be farmers for him, so he could have the vegetables that he needed for the 2 hotels that he was running, the one at Fort Thompson and the one at Everett Hotel uptown.
Really?
And I had never read that before. And it was
You
quite.
never heard that one?
No, I wanted to know where that girl got that information, but I think she was a daughter to a man that was used to be in the paper in Glades County. But I thought that was so interesting. He would just,
You'd ask it?
let them come in and plant. So that was on a long
Ask the
stick.
local folks to do that.
I don't, not really.
Okay.
He had to get good farmers out of
Kansas.
Kansas.
You know, those farmers from Kansas must have just died when they got down there in that heat.
Don't you know they did?
Now, you mentioned earlier that Joe Hendry came from Scotland, the Hendrys.
Hmm.
Did you know them at all?
Oh, no, that's before the Revolution.
I knew that, but did you know any of the descendants?
Oh, yes, all the way down. There's a Hendry reunion every year the Saturday before Easter in Fort Myers. Out in Fort Myers, a lawyer, Lois Hendry. But I
Okay. Okay. Let me see what else I've got right here. I'm taking a look.
That's how I got to be a DAR. Through Robert Hendry that came from Scotland. It wasn't really 4 generations. I didn't decide to be a DAR until I was 60 years old. And going back, I didn't have any problem because the main thing that I had to prove that I was a daughter of Joseph B. And in the Hendry plot outside of Tampa, when their mother passed away, all the children's name was put on the tombstone and the dates of their birth. And all I had to do was just have a picture made of that at the cemetery. And I had no problem whatsoever.
So now you're daughter of the American Revolution.
Uh-huh. Had been for a long time, for say 20 years.
We've talked a little bit about when you first got to LaBelle.
Mm-hmm.
You were a young lady then?
25.
A bride, yeah,
Mhm.
a bride.
Mm-hmm.
And your father had leased land, and you and Barney, I guess, had married in Tampa.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
See, we came down 3 years after we married.
So what was the first enterprise? Did you work with your father farming, or what did Barney do?
Barney worked right along with the ranch. See, I had 2 brothers there that was down there too.
And what did you do?
Well, I was very fortunate. I had my child to take care of, and I had the house to run. I was fortunate enough to have help. But by land, you could get them for $5 a week, and they'd work 7 days. Glad to have it. But when I was 40 years old, Barney looked at me one day and he said, you know, I think you need to know something about this business. And I thought he was crazy. I never had no business education. But we had this bookkeeper that was getting ready to not work anymore because she's having her second child. So Beth Charlotte, she wrote down exactly what I was supposed to do from the ledger, no, from the journal to the ledger.
Really?
And I did exactly what she told me to. I was keeping 3 sets of books.
3 sets?
Yeah, my mother's, and Barney had the farm and then the ranch, because that was after the division.
The division?
We divided our land in '49. It's in here.
Okay.
And it was 75,000 acres. We ended up with 26. We were on this end of the ranch. See, it went almost to Clewiston on both sides of the road, and it was very few outs. That means land that other people owned.
Okay.
And that's what I was going to talk about.
Oh, you were talking about 3 sets of books,
Yeah.
and you bought the land. Yeah.
One day I was just sitting there and I just thought, well, I think the thing that I had to learn more than anything was a debit and a credit. You bet. I felt so, well, how could I have known if I had never had anything?
That's right. Florinellas, when did you first meet them?
Oh, I met them before I was married. I went down there with our foreman. We'd already had my father's foreman that he had down at LaBelle. I was still in Tampa.
Well, I know we talked about this a little bit, but I'd like to go back to it. I want to hear about being a guy, of course. I want to hear about the cowboys and the Indians. What can you tell me about it? You remember cowboys, but you actually met Indians who come into town.
Yeah, they came in every Saturday for years because there was no roads from Immokalee other than coming to LaBelle. They hadn't built those roads to cross there where they are been today in a long time, and they naturally came every week, every Saturday. Had Barney jumping, and this girl, he called her a girl. She must have been 18 or 19 years old, but he just thought she was wonderful. He wasn't about 5 years old or 6, but I had to take him down there to see Elsie, I believe was her name, and then after they stopped coming, you you really missed them. After the roads were built before they could go otherwise. And the people from Immokalee would come, and it was just like heyday. We'd all be at the drugstore, they'd all come in, and after they stopped coming, we missed that too. And they all ended up at Florinella's. That's where we all ended up.
And then they have dances on Saturdays or something? The dances? When they're dance or social on Saturdays?
What our social was when we went down there, we would go to town and park. Well, I don't think we'd park in front of L.M. Jennings. That's a hardware store. Yeah, I believe that's where we would, where we could see what was going to happen down at the, well, I'll be able to think of the name of that bar.
Long Branch?
Yeah, no, not Long Branch. It was down there, down where Florinella's, the old place of Florinella's. There was a bar down there, and there'd always be somebody come through the window.
So it was definitely Wild West back then.
It was.
Okay, so we've got you and Barney living there. Your father has leased land from Henry Ford, has eventually bought it from Mr. Ford's representative. And then Barney got involved in community affairs. And how long's Barney been How long ago did Barney pass?
When you what,
How long ago did he pass?
89.
Notes I have say he was a mayor, a banker, and a commissioner, and a businessman.
Well, he was the governor of the water control system, which was quite an honor. And the headquarters was in West Palm Beach. See, that's an appointment by the governor.
I think I know what that is, but people may be, you see this movie, people may look at hundreds of years from now.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the water control? What was that?
They controlled all of those canals. They've been, each governor had controlled or looked over so many canals in the Everglades. That's the best way I know how to describe it.
Okay, and Barney was appointed by the governor.
Mm-hmm.
What, do you remember who the governor was?
I was trying to think about that. Maybe I'll think of it.
And do you know when it was, roughly?
I would say probably in the 60s. Seemed like all of this that he did was all kind of together. But I'll try. I don't have any way of knowing when that was. I don't really. And then he was the mayor for 2 terms.
South the city of LaBelle.
Mm-hmm. And he was Henry County Commissioner for 2 years. And chairman of the board of Henry County Bank from the time of its founding to his death in 1989. He was a charter member of of most all of the civic organizations that came, because see, there was a long time there wasn't hardly anything there.
Rotary
And all of a sudden they began Rotary, and he was a member of the Elks Club in Fort Myers, and we were a member of the Royal Palm Yacht Club in Fort Myers, in Clewiston. No, Fort Myers, I'm sorry. And that's where we had our 50th anniversary in 1984. And then also we were a member of the Clewiston and Country Club. And that hunting lodge that we had, the new country club was planned, and Barney was number 4 in the membership.
So that's the one just east of LaBelle.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I stayed there.
In Clewiston?
No, not at Clewiston. I wonder if I'm confused now. There's a country club just on the eastern outskirts of LaBelle. Okay.
That's there is. It's 30 miles though.
To Clewiston, the Clewiston Inn. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 50th anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And all our brands, they had ices and all our brands for the occasion, the 50th anniversary. We were Grand Marshal for the Clewiston Country Club, Clewiston Country Fair. And Barney was 2nd Grand Marshal of the Swamp Cabbage Festival. In 1967, Bob Bird was clerk, and Barney was mayor, and the first phase of the country club, of the, I couldn't do without this, could I?
I can't do it without mine either.
The first phase was the new city hall on Hickman Chief. It's not the last one, but the first where it was moved from uptown. And guess that's about it.
Well, I'm so impressed that you've taken the time to write these notes down.
Well, I couldn't remember to tell you, because I hadn't thought about all these things in a long time.
How many children did y'all have?
Just the one,
And what is that? What is your child's name?
Barney Joe Barron. Barney for his father and Joe for my father.
And where is he now?
That's the reason I'm here. He's in Oklahoma City. He's a retired doctor, gastroenterologist, and he married a girl that he met when he was at Baylor. He was never cut out to be a cattleman. He's strictly an indoor man. And that's why we sold the ranch, because he was already established and out here.
I want to ask you, when you sold the ranch, when did you sell it? Who did you sell it to?
We sold it in 1972. General Development Company.
And what are they doing with the land now?
I don't know. I understand it hasn't been too successful venture.
But you got your money.
Oh, yes, we did. That was the main thing.
That's good. Let me look at my notes here. Your doctor, when you were in Clewiston, who did you use? Who did you and Barney use as a doctor? Not in Clewiston, in LaBelle, excuse me. In LaBelle, who did you use?
Dr. Chow.
Now, I don't believe I've heard that name from anyone else.
Dr. Chow is the one that found Barney had leukemia. He's a good little doctor. He's still there.
But he hasn't been there for a long.
He's been there a long time. See, I've been out here 11 years, and he took care of that then, and he'd been there some time. He has more or less a sort of a clinic that's out there by the back of the big grocery store, if you know where that is. That's where he is. We liked him because if he couldn't help you, he could find you a good doctor.
But when you first went to LaBelle in 1937, who were the doctors then?
Dr. Weaver. He's all I had, because he was all we had.
And not Dr. Baumgart?
No, she was a long time before she came. In fact, her father practiced before she did. In fact, really, I don't think Elizabeth wanted to be a doctor. I think she felt obligated that her father was one, and the brother was not interested. And that's why she went, because I don't think she really had her heart in it.
You can tell around somebody if their heart's in it or not.
That's true, especially a doctor.
The river used to be crooked,
Oh, that must have been something.
and they straightened it. Do you remember those projects?
No.
That happened before you were
It had been straightened, it was just like this, it's just crooked as it could be. That had, we never experienced any of that. That was the way we traveled too, but before roads.
And someone told me the river was so crooked that the boats had to burn crooked firewood, the old steamboats.
I don't know that, but I knew they had to use a rope sometime to pull them around those
Really?
crooked things. I mean, I heard that, I didn't see it.
And you put a dike around your house to keep it, was that from the river flood?
Mm-hmm.
Did it work?
It paid dividends. We never had water come back again after, just one time after that dike was put up there. Of course, it's all gone now except just that one high ledge there that's on the side of the house. That's where Barney planted me lots of azaleas. On Christmas, he had them out there, had somebody plant them, and I didn't even see them. And they're still there, and they said they're doing beautifully.
Next time I'm down there, I'll look.
Let's see, they'll have to be in March. That's in March.
I'll look and see if they're still growing there. I know they won't bloom until March.
Yeah, they see my granddaughter and her family stay there stay at home 6 months out of the year. Then they go to Steamboat and stay there. They came through town just recently. And
You've known so many people there. When you think back and think about different people you've known, who is somebody that's really stands out in your mind? Good, bad, doesn't matter. Just someone that really made an impression on you, other than Barney.
I don't know, that'd be hard to say. Well, I guess it would be, yes, I know no doubt about that. I had a neighbor. I met her when I went down before I was married. With this Julian Dixon, who was foreman for my father. And I met Vera Campbell. And she was working in the county agent's office. And then when I went back 4 years later, I don't know, but she just means LaBelle to me. That's all there is to it. I don't know what in the world I would have done without her. And she finally lived just kind of across the road from me, there in that first house when you were coming from Cluis to not the newer one, was the older one that's back and all the trees and what have you. And we're still friends. She's in North Florida now, in a retirement center like this. And it's been a long relationship. But, you know, when you first asked me that, I couldn't think of a soul, especially, and to think that I wouldn't think of her. I don't know why I wouldn't have, because she is it.
You thought of it.
Mm-hmm.
Hurricanes, fires, tornadoes, natural disasters, floods, any of those particularly stick out in your mind?
Oh, my. We had hurricanes every year. That's why we had the dike way too late to put it up. But we would have a hurricane about once a year. And what we hated so badly was one to be a wet and lots of rain. That's what would cause all the water. And it was nothing for us to be wading water for 2 weeks. We would put a car out on the highway and a towel and what have you, and wait, and it being just the river just back of us, it would be just as clear as it could be. But the water on the other side of the road would be just as black and dirty as it could be, so we had something to be fortunate for. But then at the same time, we'd be without lights for 2 weeks at a time. And I had a 2-burner oil stove that I had in the pantry I'd pull out. But we finally got a little Delco system enough to take care of the deep freeze and the kitchen. I don't know how you would survive, really, if you hadn't had that. We used lamps. I had one gas lamp I was scared to death of.
Probably a good cause, too.
Yeah, and you get up in the morning and go to see how far the water had come up on the steps. We had two steps up onto the porch, and then one more step up into the house, because Barney had the house built as high or higher than the highway, because the water didn't get up on the highway. So every morning I'd run out there and see if maybe be up on the second step. But it never did ever come any higher than that.
Fortunate.
So it had one more step, and then one more step in. And
Did y'all attend church there?
oh yes,
Which church?
First Baptist.
All your life in LaBelle, you went to the same church?
No, I changed membership. Barney didn't, and went to the First Christian Church.
It's my understanding the church was pretty much a social center also. People went to church, had a lot of social activities.
Yes, they did. I think more than they would have today. But there really wasn't any social life there. Barney and I had friends in Clewiston and friends in Fort Myers. Because it was just,
Who are your best friends? Couples usually end up being best friends with another couple.
oh, well, Barney and I had some, but we would spend the weekends in Clewiston, and we'd play bridge with 2 tables. We'd play bridge, and the men would play poker, have dinner, and those type of things. Our social life was really in Fort Myers and Clewiston. Mm-hmm.
Any whiskey stills in that part of the country?
I don't know.
Don't know. I'm thinking there probably were.
I'm sure they would have been.
You wrote out all those yellow sheets there. Why don't we pick those up and let's talk about some of the stuff that's on those?
Okay. Well, I sort of enjoyed it. I know my granddaughter's the one that has 3 children. She's so interested in the family history. In fact, she's a DAR too. She works through my work.
Why don't we do this, Miss Barron, if it's all right with you? Why don't you just start at the top here and tell me what you've written there. You don't have to read it, but just tell me what you've written.
Let me turn that light on.
Sure.
Let's see, this is about the island of Barron off the coast of Glasgow. That's Robert Hendry. He's the one that came before the Revolutionary War and was in that.
So he is from where?
Island of Arran, A-R-R-A-N. I believe that's the way it's spelled. In the off the coast of Glasgow, Ireland.
So he came to LaBelle.
No, he came to. First, he was in North Carolina and moved into South Georgia, and eventually to Florida. Now, see, that's my great grandfather. And this is telling about.
So you were a Hendry before you got married.
Mm-hmm. You didn't know us, Hendry?
No, I did not.
Oh, I Claire.
I know now.
Mm-hmm.
And so your father was a direct descendant from.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, it was George. It was Robert, John, George Washington. Now that was my father's father, and Joe.
And you had brothers and sisters?
I had 3 brothers.
They did not go to LaBelle, did they?
Oh yes, they did. But
They did.
let's see. I still have one brother that's living in West Palm Beach because the other 2 have been gone a long time. Alva, next to me, there was 6 years between us, and 4 years between me and my younger brother. And he's the only one that's living. But yeah, they were all into this when we had the division. And we had this in. Joe B had the center. That was the baby of the family. And then my mother had the other end. But it's all sold now.
So that's the first thing you wrote, and what did you write next on there?
Well, I wrote here that I spent 7.5 years in Georgia in school.
And that was at Norman Park.
One is at Norman Park, Norman Institute. It became a junior college while I was there. But then I went to school in North Georgia. That's Burnell College at Gainesville, Georgia. And while I was at Burnell, then I talked about that being the first May Day Queen. And let's see, this Barney's family is quite interesting. Barney's family was, they were farming people. And there were 7 children.
There They were selling children?
7 children.
Oh, I thought you said selling children.
No, 7 children.
7 children.
In the family, and each received a half section of land adjoining each other when the father passed away
Where was that?
in Georgia. And Ryan, Georgia, that area was out from there, kind of near Fitzgerald and about 90 miles south of Macon.
Yeah, okay.
And Barney came to Tampa in the 1920s. We met and were married in 1934. In 37, we moved from Tampa to LaBelle to make a home for my mother, for my father. So this comes into the division. I think we've already discussed that, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
And I had someone here about Barney's ancestors. They're quite interesting. This here is about my father's family.
Tell me about that. You probably don't have to read, you know about all.
No, I don't. There's so much more I could write about it, but I just thought it was just probably enough. Joseph B. Hendry was 7th child of a family born to George W. Hendry and Amanda Haig of Tampa. He was a farmer and cattleman. He came home after fighting in the Indian Wars and Civil War and was an invalid and died shortly after coming. They were in dire circumstances. Just can't imagine what it was, just like it was in the South. There was one quarter, and a neighbor came by and brought them some potatoes. And I heard my father say numerous times how good those potatoes taste. You just can't imagine such circumstances. This neighbor that brought them, though, he opened up a grocery store. This is on down. He opened up a grocery store downtown. You know, across from, are you familiar with Tampa?
A little bit.
He had a grocery store across the street for the Columbia restaurant.
No kidding. In Ybor City.
Yeah, in Ybor City. He even did that to have money for the family expenses. In the back of his mind, from the time he was knee-high, he was going to have cattle, just like his father had had cattle. See, they drove those cattle from the Tampa area and the Fort Myers area and other areas all over the state, cattle to the Georgia-Florida lines for the Confederate Army. And that's why they had nothing. I don't think that's generally known, do you?
I think it's what?
I don't think that's generally known, do you?
I don't think so.
Mm-hmm. But I heard it so many times. And then Amanda, what she had to do, she swallowed her pride and went out and washed clothes for northern people that were moving in on the Alafire River out from Tampa. And they were the closest family that I had, Jean, that I don't think she could ever been any closer than they were. What one had, the other had. I mean, they loved their mother, and they weren't bitter about the conditions that had been done to them by the Yankees. And my mother was completely opposite her family. Her mother just really made it real bad. It's the difference in people. Mm-hmm.
And different roots.
That's right. Different temperaments. That's that grandmother. I can tell you a story on her too. I hope I won't talk too much.
You will.
Her father didn't come back from the war. They were on a plantation in Georgia. And they came to Florida. I don't know what it was, some way of traveling with a wagon to Pasco County and eventually on down to Hillsborough in that area. But evidently her mother had her where she just thought there's nothing worse than a Yankee, just hatred, really hatred. And she did that with those children. Funny thing, when Barney Joe married Sylvia, that's my child, married a girl from Kansas. And that first thing Mama asked her, was she a Confederate or was she a Federal? And Sylvia's quick. I couldn't have ever done it. She said, well, Bamboo, everybody called her Bamboo. Bamboo, I don't think there was either. I think it was a territory.
It was smart.
And Uncle Leland, who lived back to back her brother, came in to get a grocery order. And he asked her the same thing. So that shows you how it was embedded in them. And I never heard my father ever even mention it.
Mayor Krejci said you had something to do with a park down there in LaBelle.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to explore that with you.
My father, after they had acquired the Ford property, all of it, the Christmas after that, he gave that to me for Christmas present. And my mother had planned to build a house in the center of it. I never understood how it got to be in a bit individual. You'd think it would have been a park from the beginning, like it's reserved like it is there.
And to this day, it's called Barron Park.
Mm-hmm.
Your father gave that to you as Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
He loved you very much. And I think you loved him very much.
Yeah, he was with us till he passed away.
That is wonderful.
I can't recall now whether we gave that. No, we did it all. No, we did it separately. I was trying to think about the library. See that area of where the library is now and the old hotel. See, we got all of that, and see, we had the park. I believe we gave that part to the city first. I think that's what it was. They, and then L.J. Nobles is such a nice man. Have you met him? L.J. Nobles, isn't he a nice person? When we gave the park to the city, he was mayor at that time, and they immediately wanted to name the park Barron, is how it happened. But it was after we had sold our property that we gave the land and building to the library in '72. It was in the 60s, I think, late 60s, when we gave the park to the city. And it's endowed, and I'm real pleased to know that they've done that third phase. See, it was planned that way. The first,
From the beginning.
the second, and now the third. It was endowed to do that. I understand it's real. It turned out real nice. It's shape of an H. And I was there for the second phase. And then this last phase has just been last year. But you know the greatest pleasure that you'll realize that I'm not civic minded like Barney was. But I had nothing. It pleased me more than to ride by the library at night and see young people in there studying. It was very rewarding. And it was his idea, bless his heart. He knew how I loved books. He's the one that suggested it.
It's going to make you feel very proud.
I'll say.
We need to take, who was married in 1900?
My father was married to Ella Chapman of Dover. That's a little town out of Tampa, about 12 miles.
Yeah.
And they had 4 children. I told you about the grocery store in Ybor City. But he began buying cattle, and he was fortunate enough to have businessmen to back him, and that was how he got the Moody brand of cattle, which is the oldest brand, the Dorkeep, which is the oldest brand registered in the state of Florida.
Now this is...
My father.
Okay, explain, I don't know much about cattle. You said the Moody is the oldest.
Yeah, the Moody brand was the oldest.
That's when you brand the cattle?
Yeah, it's a Dorkeep, just a regular old skeleton Dorkeep.
Oh.
And the brand was given to my son. Of course, I don't know what he's done with it because we don't have any cattle anymore. That's one thing that I thought I felt. There was cattle before the Civil War. My father's father. And he was determined to have cattle. And let me see, I told you about him having the cattle running everywhere like everybody else did. Before the no fence law, I told you that.
We started to talk about that. I think that's where we had the camera turned.
Was it?
Yeah, you said the fence law was not a fence law or something. I got confused.
They call it a no fence law, but it's truly not. It's true you've got to have a fence. We never could understand that.
Well, why did they want a fence law?
Keep cattle from running all everywhere, the roads and running on other people's property. And some of those people back those days, they really got rich off of other people stealing cows.
So all the cattle would just be out there together and they would be branded,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, they'd be all once a year. That's right, round them all up and brand them once a year.
And then when it was time to bring them in, you'd round them all, bring them in, then you just sort them out by
You have to sort them out. Well, that was really the best thing that happened.
I heard they used to use tricks branding, like maybe somebody's brand was an F
Mm-hmm, and they changed it.
to an E.
Mm-hmm, yeah, they could. If they did that, they could.
What was the penalty if they got caught?
Better not get caught.
Cattle rustling. I'm going to ask you 2 questions,
Okay.
and these are probably things you hadn't thought about. That's okay. What do you think the future is for LaBelle?
Really, I have lost contact. I know it has grown. And there was a time when out there where our house was built. At that time, there wasn't 3 cars that come by in 2 or 3 hours. There was not any traffic in 42. And you see what it is today. It's an interstate from Fort Myers to West Palm Beach.
They're talking think there's some talk about 4-lane unit all the way through.
It's supposed to be before it's over. With all the groves that have been built, have been planted in the last 25 years. It happened when we had that freeze up in North Florida so bad, and it on the north side of the Caloosahatchee, it wasn't any, it was ice and cold, but on the south there wasn't any. And that was when they began to to come in and plant groves. It ended up by planting thousands and thousands of acres. Of course, they were planted like they do everything else, and they've had it kind of rough, I understand. But Barney had the right idea that we should have another egg in our basket besides just cattle. So he was going to plant about 300 acres every year and just build it up. Well, he started that. They came in there and started planting by the thousands of acres.
There was the market.
He said,
There was the market.
I think we just better forget that and just stay with the cattle.
I mentioned to you a little while ago, and very casually, that 100 years from now, people may be seeing this tape, this material.
Mm-hmm.
You realize this will go into the libraries and that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And 100 years from now, someone may sit down and look at this talk you and I are having.
Mm-hmm.
And would you have any messages or thoughts or wisdom that you would like to tell somebody who might look at this 100 years from now? Or which one?
I don't know, really.
This is the year 2001, June 15th. And what message would you like to send to perhaps the young people 100 years from now?
It'd be so nice if we could get them back.
Ma'am?
It would be so wonderful if we could get them back, but you can't go back. If we could get our teenagers, like my son, was in a small school. I think it was maybe 27 in his graduating class in 57. He said to me not very long ago, he said, "You know, Mother, I think about what a wonderful time I had in high school. There wasn't any drinking to mount anything. You never heard of dope. If you could bring it back to a time like that and let the children growing up, especially in high school, not have all this thrown to them.
Drugs, alcohol, pregnancy.
That's right. We would have a much better group of young people."
100 years from now, some young person's going to look at this tape. You've got a message for them.
I've learned so clear that he mentioned that to me not too long ago, just out of the clear blue sky. That what a good
You've lived a long life. What's been the secret to your longevity?
I don't know. I'm not supposed to live a long time. Barney was the one that was supposed to be the long-lived family. His mother lived to be 97 years old. And no, you can't invest on life.
Well, some of the folks in LaBelle will be looking at these videos.
Mm-hmm.
You have any messages you'd like to send to them?
I don't believe so. I believe so.
And what would you like to talk about that we've not talked about?
I don't know. I can't think of anything right now. Well, I did want to tell you about Barney's ancestors. They're quite impressive.
Okay. You know, the old Florida Ella's restaurant downtown?
Mhm.
It's now called Christopher's.
Is it?
And they're very impressive, very nice young men is running it.
Is the food good?
It's real good.
Oh,
Reasonably priced. He's very community
that's wonderful.
spirited. In fact, he's starting a dinner cruise boat from the city dock, where people can get on the boat and cruise up and down the river and have their dinner.
Oh, he's going. How does it look to you about how LaBelle is coming along? Seem to be best, you see that any progress?
I see a need for some type of industry. Because as you mentioned, the cattle business is pretty well gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm an outsider.
Yeah, uh-huh.
And the citrus industry, who knows? I think they need some sort of like computer industry or something that's not going to destroy the environment.
Mm-hmm.
And I really believe they need to push their tourism. It's a beautiful town, beautiful river, very historically rich. And I don't know if it's really tourism, but appreciation.
Mm-hmm.
And the wildlife, incredible wildlife.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
They need to say, hey, come look at us. And if they do that, then hopefully progressive young people like this Christopher will become interested in it, move in.
Mm-hmm.
Because I really feel that the town is where it could absolutely die out, or else it could flourish. It doesn't need to get much bigger.
I
They just
wonder,
need to make
lots of them have to go 30 miles to work, aren't they? That always has been that way there, the Clifton,
Be very good
company.
quality of life there. I think under Mayor Krejci, now you've known her a long time, right? You know Sherry Krejci a long time?
Oh, yes, ever since she came to town.
When did she come?
I don't recall, but she's been there a long time.
I think under her leadership, they stand, she'll at least maintain the status quo and make things better when possible.
Oh, yeah, here it is.
Okay, and this is your husband Barney's ancestry.
Mm-hmm. On Barney's mother's side, there was two generals. One was General Coffee. He was a friend of Andrew Jackson and stayed at the White House during session. He is buried in a little-known cemetery in Washington that became, because bodies at that time were not sent home. General Wilcox, I don't know too much about him. I did see his monument in the family cemetery, and both men have counties named for them.
In Georgia.
In Georgia.
Coffee County and Wilcox County.
Mm-hmm. She was, I never could say anything about my mother-in-law. She was a lovely person. You don't hear people talk about their mother-in-laws like they used to, do you? Was that just a phase of history?
I think so.
I was very fortunate though. Of course, now she lived in Georgia and I lived in Florida. I don't know if we lived next door.
So I was thinking, maybe the distance didn't hurt. Maybe that didn't hurt.
She gave me a pen though that I just cherish so. It's a little bar pen, gold. Her father gave it to her when she was 7 years old. And like I said a while ago, she was 97 when she passed away. Well, she died about 1984, I believe it was. Well, see, that makes that over 100 years old now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that makes it doubly nicer.
I just remembered that black gentleman's name. Kid Jones. LaBelle, a black gentleman that was in his 90s that could remember things so well.
Who's that?
His name was Kid, K-I-D, Kid Jones.
Yeah. I had to think a minute. He used to work for M.G. Davis, but I was talking about the trading post.
And he delivered ice.
Yeah, uh-huh. And he is still living. He was always the best-natured person.
He rode with me all day one day.
Did he? Well, I declare. But if you see him, you tell him I said hello.
I'll do it because the next time I go down there, I'm going to drop by and say hello to that boy.
I'm going to do that and tell him that I was so glad to hear from him, hear about him. Oh, he was always very pleasant.
Kid Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. This has been wonderful. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we should talk about. We've covered a lot of territory last hour and a half.
Haven't we?
I can tell you're enjoying life here.
You kid? I play bridge. I love to play bridge. I have since I was a child. I play three times a week. And that keeps you young.
Brain sharp.
That's what makes my son so happy. He said, Mother, that's the best thing in the world you could do.
Well, he's a doctor, you should know.
Mm-hmm. Did you want the name of his children?
Sure.
Um,
Because you said you had great-grandchildren.
mm-hmm.
So your son's name, you told me earlier, is
Barney Joe and his wife, his name's Sylvia. And they have 4 children. They're all grown. 2 of them are living in Washington, D.C.
and who are those 2?
Joe, that's Ann and Daniel. And Daniel since he graduated from Baylor, and he has been working in Senator Inhofe's office, who is a senator from Oklahoma, ever since he got out of college. I'd say probably 6 years. Ann had worked in one of the representative office when she went there. They had always been close from growing up, and she was younger, and he wanted her to come to Washington, and she did. And she was working for Representative Corbin from Oklahoma. And then she was working on her master's, and one of the computer family companies wanted to hire her. And so she went to work for them. What is the name of that? It's in a business. So they did, and she and Madeline immediately, just fit right in. And the teacher that she had, they didn't really like. She wasn't interested too much in a small child. She's going to be taught by this woman. Violin lessons, isn't that wonderful?
And that's the conductor.
Mm-hmm. It wouldn't happen again in 100 years.
I wonder if they'll let her play with the symphony sometime.
Huh?
Maybe they'll let her play with the symphony at Christmas show or something.
Sure. I mean, I think she's made a big. We thought she was been improved, so, but they say just a few lessons made a lot of difference in the own thing that she was doing.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't you mention you had a photograph of something you wanted to see?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just running you back and forth, aren't I?
I need that exercise.
You do?